Hey everybody, it's Allie Edwards, and I am here today to introduce you and welcome you to the next series in our story play series for this year. We offered 4 different kits this year as a part of this series, and we've been doing content related to each one. We did Day in the Life earlier in the year. We also did a photography one. This one obviously is rooted in facts and feelings, and then we'll have one more later this year called Little Moments. Today's video is simply going to be an introduction, a reason why, and a little bit of an overview. And at the end of this video, I'll go over what you can expect the rest of this week. So as I was thinking about why I wanted to do this particular theme this year in our story play series, the reason why I wanted to do this one is because it's really just one of my most favorite ways to get a more complete story told. People often come to me for journaling advice or suggestions or questions related to how do I tell more complete stories? How do I tell deeper stories? How do I tell stories that go beyond just the basics? And this formula, which essentially it's a formula, this formula of facts and feelings is something that I come back to again and again and again in my own memory keeping adventures. I'm not sure when I first started using this as a specific technique. It was a number of years ago now. We did a black and white story kit early on in that subscription series, and I included some facts and feelings information on that. I did a YouTube video last year, which I will link for you guys in the blog post today, or on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. I did a video about why I think it's important, so you can go watch that and see what I said then. This week, obviously, we're going to be focusing on using the pieces in the kit to support the stories that I might want to tell in my own memory keeping adventures. So whether you are a scrapbooker or not, using facts and feelings as a tool in your journaling, memory keeping, storytelling toolbox is really what I want to encourage you to do. Have it in your back pocket. Have it as a tool that you can return to again and again to get more complete stories told. So again, the reason why I wanted to do this is, number one, this is just simply one of my most favorite ways to get stories told. Number two, I really do feel like it helps me to tell a more complete story, because not only am I just talking about the basics of this particular story, and we're going to talk more about what is a fact and what is a feeling in a minute. When you have both of them, you are telling a more complete story. And there's something else that's really important about it, which is you are the only one that can tell your story. So nobody else can include feelings from you about the particular story. So number 3 reason why I wanted to do facts and feelings for one of our story play series this year is that when I think about what I wish I knew from, it could be my parents who are still with us. It could be my grandparents, people from the past. The things that I want to know about them go beyond the facts. I definitely want to know the facts. I want to know where they lived and what they did for a job, and maybe what their favorite color was, or what were their hobbies. I want to know those basic facts. But in addition to that, I also want to know their heart. And when we include feelings in our writing adventures and our journaling adventures, we're including our heart, right? It might be good feelings, it might be hard feelings, it might be challenging things, it might be celebratory feelings. Obviously in our lives, we encounter a wide variety of feelings. And I have come to believe that those are really, really an important piece of our own personal storytelling. Otherwise, it is just the facts. Otherwise, it is essentially what someone could see by looking at our picture, right? They can see the facts of the thing, but they can't see the heart of the thing. And so for me, adding in feelings is really adding in the heart of the story that can only come from you. In when I've talked about this kind of idea before, I've called it past perspective. So thinking about what you wish you knew, and then using that as data and as information to inform the choices that you make going forward in your own memory keeping adventures. So if you wish you knew how your parent spent their everyday life when they were in their 30s or 40s, that's the kind of storytelling that maybe you should do, right? The everyday life kind of storytelling, the documenting the rhythms. And that really, for me, I think was one of the reasons why in the very beginning, I started doing everyday life kinds of documenting or everyday life scrapbooking, is because those are the kinds of stories that I wish that I had about my family members and about the people that I care about the most. So use that as a way to influence how you choose to do your own journaling and your own memory keeping. So, and you may have a completely, you might be thinking of something totally different, right? I'm not telling, this is again, as with everything that we talk about, there isn't a right or a wrong. What I am here sharing with you today is my own experience and what has worked for me to help get more of my stories told, to get thousands of stories told that go beyond just the facts. So those are my reason why. That's the main thing that I wanted to impart to you today. But what I also wanted to do in this video was just talk briefly about what is a fact and what is a feeling? And then we're going to have some other things that we're going to focus on later this week. So a fact is a thing that is known or proved to be true. A fact is something very, very specific. And it's often answering one of these four questions: the who, the what are you doing, right? Who are you? Or who's in that photo? What are the people in the photo doing? Where are they, or where are you in the story, right? If you're thinking about the story, who's the main character of the story? What is happening in the story? Where is the story taking place? And when is that happening? Those are all things that are rooted in facts that we can add to the stories when we are telling them. So again, I want both. I want this piece of the story puzzle, and I want the feelings too, but I definitely want the facts. Here are some examples of what fact-based phrases or fact-based sentences could be as you are telling your story. It's really setting the scene, right? It was 5 a.m. You were born on a Tuesday, right? You're giving a fact about when something happened. The sky was blue. That's telling you what, right? What color was the sky? The sky was blue. How long did it take to get somewhere? It took an hour to get there, right? These are all fact-based statements that can be included in your memory keeping. We gathered around the table. Who gathered around the table? We did. We gathered around the table. That is a fact. It's something that can be shown in a photo. It's something that is just a basic piece, right? So you can have all of those individual facts. Those all might be a part of the story that you're telling. But what I want to encourage you during this week, and what it tends to be that most people have the biggest challenge with, is including the feelings, right? So facts are often things that you can see on the surface of a photo. Later on this week, I'm going to do a whole video that's talking about looking at photos and excavating stories by examining the different layers that are in the photo itself. So we'll talk about that later this week. So then we've talked about what a fact is. So what's a feeling? A feeling is to have a belief or an impression, especially without an identifiable reason, right? A feeling is an experience or an emotion or a sensation, something that comes from the inside of us, right? It's either coming from our heart, coming from our brain, coming from our stomach, right? If we feel sick to our stomach or we feel tired, it is something that happens inside of our body, right? And it's going to be different for different people. The feelings that I'm having inside myself about a certain life situation could potentially be different from what you are feeling about a certain life situation. And it's those individual pieces of our stories that really make our stories unique and individualized, I guess I would say. So if facts are the who, the what, the where, and the when, the feelings are really the why. That's often is what is being answered when you are telling a story and you're wanting to include more feelings. It might be, why did you gather together? It might be, why was this a good event? Or why was this a bad event? Or why was this successful? Or why was this a challenge? It's going to a deeper level than just the surface facts. Again, I want both. I want both. So the feelings are really the rest of the story beyond the facts. And this, to me, is really the most important piece, which is that feelings are the piece of the story only you can tell. Aaron, my husband, and I could be sitting here together. We could be recounting a story from when we saw Dave Matthews at the Gorge. The facts of the story would likely be the same, right? When we went, what we did when we were there, who we saw, what we heard, right? Those are the facts. But if you were to ask us each, what did you love most about this adventure? Or, how did you feel about this adventure? We're probably going to have a different response because we each have our own individualized experience from being together on that particular adventure. So he can only give his feelings and I can only give my feelings. So those are the pieces. That's where the real gem is. And a big piece of incorporating or being willing to add feelings to your storytelling is simply by being willing to do it, right? By saying, yes, I am going to start showing up in a way where I am adding more feelings into the stories that I'm telling and into the documentation that I'm doing. And adding feelings doesn't mean that you have to spill everything out and that you have to say how horrible you thought something was and how bad you felt about it. It's not really about that. It's just opening up the curtain a little bit. And for some people, opening the curtain into your feelings, you might just be peeking, right? It might just be a peek out, and that's awesome, right? That is a first step into adding more heart into the stories that you are documenting. And then there's going to be other people that are like, open up the curtains as wide as possible, and I'm going to show you all of myself, right? There's going to be choices all along the way for you to decide where do you want to be on that. And sometimes we may have a story to tell that is really rooted in feelings and that is very emotional and potentially deep and telling a lot more of the story. And other times we're going to have ones that are maybe just the facts, right? Sometimes that is just enough. And that is part of your job, is figuring out, when do you want to tell more? When do you want to add more feelings? Or when is just the facts enough? And each one of us is going to have a different opinion on that. Each one of us is probably going to actually have a different answer to that during different seasons of our life. I know that I've found over all of my years of memory keeping that there are certain seasons where it's significantly easier to add the feelings. And there are other seasons when it's a lot harder. And I'm not someone who is punishing myself when I don't add feelings or, thinking bad about myself or feeling guilt when I'm not adding feelings to a particular story when I'm maybe just including the facts, because I know that the bulk of the stories that I have told in this compilation of all of these stories together, that's the real gift. And many, many, many of my stories have more feelings-based journaling or a mixture of both facts and feelings, which is really what I want to talk about with you guys this week. Including both. What are ways and techniques that we can make sure that we are including both, or encourage ourselves to bring in both. So feelings are often the stories that are layered underneath the facts of a photo, right? You look at a photo, you see the facts, on top of the photo there. It's the underneath, it's the behind the curtain stuff that can come from inside of you, right? That is the feelings portion of our storytelling adventures. So facts are only part of the story. Feelings are only part of the story. It's when we combine both of them together that I think we find that real sweet spot in storytelling and in memory keeping documentation. So tomorrow we are going to talk about lists. And I literally, as I am telling stories, will often use a list. It's a list because it's one of my most favorite ways to organize my story. And often one of the ways that I do that is simply by Here's number one, here's a fact. Number two, here's a feeling. Number one, number three, here's a fact. Number four, here's a feeling. And we'll talk more about that as a strategy tomorrow. The next day, we're going to talk about facts and feelings and photos, which is what I mentioned earlier. Then on Thursday and Friday of this week, I am going to share with you some projects that I have created with the different elements that are in the facts and feelings kit. So this is a look at what was included in the kit. There are some prompt-based pattern papers. There are facts and feelings journaling cards there that are inviting you to include both of those in a story, even when you're just telling a really short story. What's a fact and what's a feeling? This one had chipboard, it has a vellum sheet, and it has some stickers. We do have some of these left in a bundle. I will link that for you guys as well. Obviously, you do not have to have this kit to participate here in our Facts and Feelings Week and to take away some of the inspiration from the things that I am going to be talking about. There was also a Facts and Feelings 3x4 stamp set that was offered as well, and that has some of these same designs on top. So if you wanted to stamp fact on a bunch of different journaling cards, you could do that, or fact down a journaling card. So we'll probably talk a little bit more about that on Thursday or Friday of this week. All right, I hope to see you guys back here again tomorrow for the next video in our Facts and Feelings Story Play series.